Welcome to the final side quest episode, starring Matt Quiet, Shirley Nedswicki, John Quiet, Justin Kimmett, Phil Durham, Scott Somerville, and Scott Troiano. Listen in as we discuss the adventure and give tips to Shirley on how she ran the game.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Nerds Domain presents our final episode of Masks of an Earl.
Let's start that over. The final side quest.
I was going to get there.
Okay.
The Masks of an Earl Tep side quest. This is our last episode of that little side quest that Shirley ran. Tonight I'm with Scott.
Hey there.
Shirley.
Hello.
Johnny.
Hi.
Justin.
Howdy.
The other Scott.
Alright.
And Phil.
Hello.
So, the point of this episode is to kind of talk to Shirley about how she did, how she thinks she did, how she feels about it, and how the rest of the players feel about it. And then any questions that we have, like WTF and lulls and that kind of stuff. So, Shirley, let's put you on the spot a little bit. It's first time running Call of Cthulhu.
Yes.
Your experience before this was, what, one game of Dungeons & Dragons?
Yeah, I think a couple years ago I did
okay.
when 4th Ed came out.
Yeah, and then a couple of sessions of Vampire the Requiem. That you ran with Dan and I. Taking
Storyteller?
Oh
yeah.
my god, that was so
It's been a while.
Anyway, yeah.
So you've got a very, very limited amount of storytelling experience.
Yeah.
How did you feel like you did tonight?
I feel like I did really well. I accomplished my end goal.
To kill us all.
Well, the literal end goal was going to be, I mean, I had two scenarios in my head. It was going to be like a huge trick that all the parents played on the kids, or it was
until we
going to
burned
be,
the house down.
Yeah, until you guys decided to burn the house down, then the game was on. So it's all Scott S's fault.
I encouraged him, by the way.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Okay, so and then it was either that or like you all were going to die, and I have a very big problem with
murdering children.
Yeah, anything that has to
Yeah, you have a shred of humanity. That's wonderful.
It didn't stop you from killing two of us.
Well, so this was kind of like a breakthrough thing for me that pushed me past the okay, I can do this in storytelling because it's fun and it's just a game and it, not necessarily means that I'm a murdering person.
So you're one step closer to a sociopath or a serial killer?
Yeah.
Do
you think I'm the way I play my characters?
Yes.
Well,
so let me ask
why do you think I don't hang out with you in real life?
So let me ask
I'm
you.
never going into the woods gold panning with you, okay?
Let me ask
Sometimes
you.
we need to go shooting.
Let me ask you a couple of questions.
Yes.
Did you expect us to go upstairs right away?
No, I didn't.
Was that all off the cuff?
Yes, that was.
Yeah, I think you did well. I could tell it was off the cuff, but that's because we can see our own. I know I do a lot of my stuff off the cuff, but you did handle it well, I think.
Yeah, I would agree.
So, especially when Scott went to go see a snake and then disappears.
Well, the thing is, I was thinking, okay, how can I make this work? How can I make this work? Because my first, like the whole time that I was planning it, and even when we started the game, everybody was going to end up in the barn. I wanted everybody to go to the barn. I wanted all the bad stuff.
Made it to the
I know.
barn.
I wanted all the bad stuff to happen in the barn.
We tried to get to the bar.
Yeah, we did. Like, we went straight to the barn, and you were like, "Nope, don't go to the barn."
Yeah.
What was in the hay, by the way?
One of the artifacts,
was it
I
just
can't
one of the
remember.
items? Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember which artifact.
Yeah, because we
it
didn't
was.
see but what 6 of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We missed out on like the wolf's paw and the jar stuff that we were going to feed to Jesse's character.
So that was my thing. Were all of these like seriously things that we needed, or because you mentioned Dracula's teeth, and in my mind I was thinking the plastic.
Yeah, it was the plastic.
So like
teeth.
they threw in some stuff to like not weird the kids out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like some of those Halloween-y weird things, but then stuff that was really needed for the ritual.
Okay.
So
that's where we first went off track, right?
Right.
It was going upstairs.
Well,
Yeah, go upstairs.
side question. Was the stuff that they needed for the ritual, like the ankh and the bowl and the things like that, were those things that they couldn't find that they were just hoping we would stumble across as kids to help them search? Or was that stuff that they had actually planted for us to bring to them?
Yes.
And to indoctrinate us, which clearly worked.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice. Clearly.
In my mind, the story was things that were planted that the offering, the person that's offering themselves up, needed to bring
to their own sacrifice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
I like
spooky.
Now, was the idea that when we found them and brought them up to offer them, though, that was a potential step of you've reached a fork in the road, you can join us or you can be the sacrifice? So when one of us brought one of those up, it would be like, so tell me, Timothy, have you ever seen a Gladiator movie? You know, that kind of like, excellent.
So,
well, I was curious. I mean, you put a second story on the house, but you wanted everything to go down to the barn. It wound up going down in the basement, which doesn't bother me.
Right.
I'm just curious, like, what was the point of the upstairs? I mean, were you just hoping we weren't going to use it?
No, when I did the creaking, the very first creaking
that none of the parents heard, quote unquote.
It was basically going to be either a cultist or a ghost or something that you guys were going to find at some point in time if you had gone to the right, but you guys went to the left.
So what was with the icy doorknob? What was behind room number 1, the doorknob that was freezing cold?
Another deep one.
Oh, good.
An Arctic deep one. I don't know.
So
if you guys would have went into the room, we would have found out what it was.
So you were really, once
there.
we went up those stairs, it was really off the cuff for you.
Yeah.
You didn't really have any plans. It was just kind of what came up.
The only plans that I had were on the left. You guys went to the right, so.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay. Trying to think of... So, with a group like us, we clearly didn't stick to your story. One of us lit a house on fire.
Did I take anything out?
The cold, deep one, you took out his portal.
Oh, no, I stuck here. So, 2 of us tried to escape through the cornfield.
Right.
One of us lost it.
Yep.
Were you expecting any of that? How do you deal with all those changes?
How did I deal with those changes? I really expected everyone to stay around the house and try to find all the artifacts. When things started going awry and you guys started talking about, well, we're getting the heck out of here, I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to compensate for this? And then I just remembered what you had told me about, being in Cthulhu, there's not really any set mechanics for it. It's the story.
And that is true to a point. I mean, the Call of Cthulhu has very set mechanics.
Right.
It does. You don't have to use them.
Right.
And that's the point of Call of Cthulhu.
And that's what I remembered, and I was thinking, even though, anything that we ever do is mostly reproduced. It's always been done in the past, and I just kept thinking, okay, what is going to keep them here? What is going to make it look like they're going to stay here without any progress? And it seemed like, quote unquote, that 50-yard line, you're not going to get past that 50-yard line.
So that's what a lot of people would call railroading, and that's used in a very negative fashion.
Right.
But in stories like this that are horror, you see it in movies all the time.
Right.
We watched Cabin in the Woods.
Yes.
And they railroaded those kids right back to the house every time.
Yeah.
Some people in the room haven't seen that. I don't know if you want to go.
Yeah, I don't want to go too deep in that. But look at most horror movies; they are railroaded from front to back.
Yeah.
They don't. Every time they find a way out, it's closed.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a major aspect of horror, though. You remove options.
So
restrict people.
I think you did railroad us lightly. I mean, it was obvious and overt in some ways, but it wasn't like, no, you can't. It was, keep trying, but it's just not working.
And because it's cooperative, I saw what you're doing. I'm like, okay, I need to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean,
I can't just give up and be like blatantly, oh, this is what the DM wants me to do. But once it's clear, okay, I've tried my things.
The cornfield was probably the most blatant, hammer to the side of the head. Don't do this kind of railroading you could have pulled up. Another option, which I think you tied in very well with my character, is I had a kid brother that I was supposed to take care of. Mm-hmm. I had friends that I wanted to take care of. I had parents that I didn't fully trust. And so endangering those and putting the parents out there as targets meant I wasn't running from any of this. And again, first time GMing, Brian Scott S's character had very few ties to why he should stay.
Right.
So we were discussing during one of the scenes while some of the characters were in the little red, the teleported room. Like Brian Scott was saying, I'm leaving, I'm going out. I was like, yeah, I can't blame you, but the way Jesse was playing Clarence, and the fact that I didn't trust my parents with my friends, I was like, I can't leave these people, So I had a heroic reason to stay, whereas other characters didn't have that. So that's another railroading without railroading. You get, you're like, these are your motivations.
You also.
So I guess I have. As a DM, or I guess I have a question about the railroading. I mean, is
in a one.
I know the way that in a one-off, this is kind of like a one-off.
Yeah.
But in the way that I used it, is that too frustrating? Should I not have gone that way?
When you put up a wall, we should respect that wall and understand it's there.
Just because I'm the DM?
No.
Because that's the story that you're telling. It's just the way it is. I mean, this is the world we have to interact with. If the world has a wall there, what are we going to do? Throw a fit because we can't go through it? No, that's not the way it works.
Not only that, but the kind of railroading you did,
the Cthulhu rulebooks. So
the kind of railroading you did was way perfectly fine. Yeah. Because, like you said, we went upstairs. Mm-hmm. They went upstairs. They went to the wrong side door. Instead of putting what you wanted in this door over here that they opened,
which would have been
came up with something completely different. We would have never known. You switched what you wanted us to do over to here, and that I don't like people who do. When I came to the basement thing, you specifically stated, "Why do I have to do? I don't want him to go down there. What kind of roll does he need to make?" Mm-hmm. You could have just flat out said, "You're 8 years old. You can't open that. It won't budge." But you gave me a chance.
Yeah, heck, you could have supernaturally locked it.
Yeah.
And the cornfield where you go down so far, you come back. There was. I didn't think it really had a railroading feel to it. Mm-hmm. But what you can do is you can layer in when you get it far more subtle. Okay, yeah, you go down, and he's going to go, oh, well, then I'm going to go down, I'm going to go in 4, and I'm going to go down 40, and I'm going to come back out. And you come back out, and you're only 6 down from where you were, and he goes, oh, I'm making progress. And then you say, you hear some rustling deeper in the cornfield. Yeah. And then it's like, now you're going to go back in 4 and go 40 more down?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. You know what, I'll walk back to the house by myself. You don't need to put me there. You know what?
But even the way you did it, as my character, I was like, it helped build the fear. It's like, I can't get away. It's inescapable.
Yeah.
This is a horror story that's important.
Yeah. The other thing you could have done is when he came back out, he was looking at the house instead of out.
Yeah.
Which would have made him gone, how did I'm on the other side?
Actually, she did do that. There was a little confusion because the kids were by the house and they wanted to get to the driveway. And she said, you get there and you see the house again. And we were like, wait, hold on. But yeah, had you just let him get 100 yards down, you're in the cornfield, you walk 100 yards, you pop out of the cornfield, you're positive you went straight and there's a road in front of you, but you pop out, there's the house.
Yep.
And I mean, that's
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, the reason why I kept asking you guys how many deep you were going in is because if you would have went 4 in, or 5 in and then turned around and came back, you would have come out on the other side.
Just wrapped around. Yeah, that would have been good too. So.
And so there's all this stuff that you did that was perfectly fine. There were some things that I saw that I think you could have done different, but this is about this. More sanity checks, honestly.
Yeah.
Every time something freaky or weird,
and
that's okay. No, that's okay. The only one that really took a hit on sanity was me, and I had fun with it.
Yeah.
And it really affected how my character reacted and got me into the stupid room.
Yeah.
So.
And the thing about sanity checks, again, the majority of your experience is D&D, right? So D&D doesn't have anything like that. Right. It's not really an option in the base rules, and in anybody can incorporate it. So you've had D&D experience, and you've had vampire experience, which vampire uses humanity
in a
similar fashion to sanity. So yeah, your experience with that is limited. So you didn't use it to the full extent that it was possible. but it wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad.
Next time around, just keep that in mind.
Well, and the things that
I guess my question would be in that, like, where should I have made
Right.
those sanity checks?
You found a dead mouse. He found a dead mouse's ear. The stuff fell from the ceiling the building shook. You did it once when the house shook, but you didn't do it again in the barn. I don't think.
Yeah. Well, I think Jesse got
when the knife hit my leg would have been a good chance for something.
When we hear
it would have caused me to do the
voices
same
through
thing.
the
threshold.
Right.
Yeah.
So
anytime
why
that
at
hold
that,
on, give me a few more. Anytime that we would have been startled, that's what they call a 0-1. 0 if you succeed, 1 if you fail. Those are small ones. You should have dinked us with a bunch of small ones for a couple of reasons. One, this is a one-shot. Losing sanity is not going to hurt us in the overall.
Right.
We're going to have those moments of, oh my god, this is terrible. But the rest of the time, in the end, we're going to be done with the character at the end of the adventure no matter what. But then there were times like we teleported. Scott should have been in that room losing his mind. How did that
That's
happen?
what I was
But
thinking, but he didn't act like that in character, so I was like,
Well, that's
okay,
because you have
then-
to. Yeah, but that's not how he acts. It's how he reacts. Just because he.
Well, and it's think of it like a drinking game. Okay, when you watch a show or whatever. Okay, all right. You looked at the light engulfs you, and you're in the basement. Drink.
Yep.
Yeah.
What? I check the door. Is it locked? I go behind the curtain. Drink.
Yeah.
It's a bare wall. And I even made the question. I was like, who the hell puts a curtain up with no window? Drink.
Yeah.
And right there, you should have been like, you lost a point of sanity. You lost a point of sanity.
So,
And
just
then
that I'm
as we
so that
lose
I'm going,
sanity,
oh,
we start acting
shit.
more.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we start role playing more
okay,
of that. Ugh.
so I guess I didn't understand it,
It's okay.
and that sanity is something the storyteller controls.
It not only
Kinda.
controls, but uses it as a storytelling method. Because when you gave me a sanity loss, because my dad just suddenly appeared, perfect. That was great. It was a little harsher than I would have done, but it was okay. There wasn't a problem.
Scott told me to give you +3.
But that's okay because that moment is what made me pull the bowl out and go, I'm one of you.
Well, and part of me, I think of it like logs on a fire. If you're trying to build a bonfire, then you hand them a couple sticks for kindling, and then you hand them a log, and then you hand them another log, until finally you're building your own raging inferno. And the reason why I looked at you and said +3 was because we hadn't had any big, like, whoa, yet.
Yeah.
Because you weren't little tiny pieces. But it was like we needed something to say, all right, we'll roll this ball down the you're all screwed
Yeah.
lane,
Lane.
and
He's
there
got-
you
he's
go.
got a- he had a
Okay.
good point. So, and it's little tweaks like that. Did everybody enjoy the game?
Oh,
Yeah,
Lots
it was
of
good.
So,
yeah.
so we all had a blast. You had fun, right?
Yeah, I did.
So-
I had a lot more fun than
So
I thought I would.
the key is we all had fun, but we could ramp that fun up. You
Right.
could refine your technique. There's nothing wrong with that. What suggestions would you give to somebody sitting down the first time to run a Call of Cthulhu game?
Right. Just like, I feel like if I had treated this like a speech, and I had written key points down that I wanted to hit, like you were talking about scenes.
Yeah.
You know, write down what points you want to hit. I think it would have ran more smoothly. There's a couple times where everyone was like, I let, the players tell the story, but there were a couple times where it seemed like we ran up on a hitch, or there was a lull time, and if I had those points in mind,
It might have helped, yeah.
it might have helped. Most of this was like, okay, you guys went to the right. Well, I had to like envision the story in my head and say, okay, this is what's going to happen. So as the story played out, it was all in my head. If you guys didn't go the way that my story had planned, I had to recreate a whole new story. So I think writing those points down would keep the storyteller on track more easily. I think that would be it. That's
Okay.
my main point.
But
John,
Because-
how about you?
I'm sorry.
Same question. If
Okay.
you were going to talk to somebody sitting down to run a Call of Cthulhu specific, and I know you haven't run one yet,
I haven't. Yeah.
but you still have the basic ideas.
Oh, sure.
So give me an idea. What would you suggest?
Well, I mean, I'll just reiterate real quickly that, I think you hit on it. Think of it as writing an outline, like there are people who will plan out every step of the way when they make a game, and it's very rigid, and when their players go off rail, they get flustered and they get upset. But an outline would help you do that. So really that's the biggest thing that a new Call of Cthulhu GM could probably do, is just have an outline of all the major points, and be prepared. I guess the other thing I would add is be prepared to tell players no, and not necessarily no, because again that feels like railroading and throwing up walls, but the way you would tell a player no is, let's say I went rifling through the kitchen. When I went rifling through the kitchen with my character, you had established that when we got here, it looked like this house was uninhabited and nobody came here until maybe yesterday. The parents brought out some stuff, and today they're bringing out the last load of stuff. Had you said to me, you know what, the kitchen is empty. There's not even cleaning supplies. There's nothing in the kitchen.
Right.
I mean, well, that sucks, but that's a no.
Right.
Because the reasoning could be, who knows what, but you don't want to arm the children. Like that's one of your tenets of the game. You don't want to arm the children.
Right.
So, because there was the barn that I couldn't get into because I wanted to keep the knife that hurt Jesse's character, but that got taken away from me. And you've been like, yes, the point is the children will be powerless to fight the adults. Then just telling me no when I was like, I want to find something, and if honestly had you said no, I would have probably resorted to I try to break a chair leg off.
Right.
I would have been getting desperate at that point, and
but sometimes desperate is what you want out of it.
Yeah, and it would have made me more on edge. So I differ with Jesse's opinion when we got upstairs and they went right instead of left or whichever direction it was, because I'm turned around now. Again, just moving what you wanted to happen. I mean, you gave us a hallway with doors on either side. How are we to know what's on what side? I mean, because that's how we used to run. We ran a D&D game for 5 years, almost 4 years, and that's what I would do. I have points. And I put, when I put you in the capital city, I just said, what do you want to do? And Matt's like, I explore the castle, and I had a note on my thing that he's going to run into a guard who, despite his rank in the military, will not let him pass. And he could have said, I go up, I go down, I go left, I go right. The guard would have been there at the end of the hall, regardless of what direction he chose to go.
Right.
And I mean, Jesse said earlier he doesn't like it when that happens, but that's what I wanted. I knew Matt was going to explore the castle. I knew I wanted the guard to be there. So I let him feel like he went wherever he went. The truth was he went exactly where I went. Wanted him to go.
And you still gave me a story point that was important to both me and my character.
Exactly.
And made me want to be in that game more.
So I told him, you explore the castle, but you find this guard. That's what happens to you. He may have wanted to find the armory or the, who knows what.
Yeah, whatever.
The bathhouse, the bathroom, but he found a guard. So that's a way to say no to your players of, no, you can't go randomly exploring, you have to find this.
I would suggest also the opposite of that is to always say yes in a way.
Well, that's essentially what I'm saying yes. I'm saying no by saying yes, but giving you what I wanted you to find.
You can also use the saying yes to let them draw out enough rope to hang themselves. Like, oh, you really want to go check out that snake in the corner?
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
Have fun in the basement the rest of the game, Scott.
And that brings me to Scott Bryan. Brian Scott. I literally felt like he was going to find any way necessary out of the front of the house, and you surprised me by running around at the back. And the moment that we drew this, I knew that those stairs were going to lead to the basement. That was just it. So I didn't make it up right when you ran to the door. I was like, holy crap, he's really going down to the basement. This is awesome. Yeah. I felt like at that time, because you were like the rogue of the whole game, that I actually like accomplished something. Everybody else kind of followed everything, but Brian was the character that was just like, I'm getting the F out of here, forget this, and that's it. And when he ran to that back door, I was like, and I thought I was going to be able to let somebody go. Oh well.
So, Jesse, do you have any?
Yeah, when I kind of run my games almost the exact opposite of the way you just stated. I have a few key points that I would like my players to come across, but other than those few points, I kind of make it up on the fly. I mean, it's like when you said the door. If I really wanted to go in this door and there was something here that was key, they don't go in that door. They don't find it. Well, it's like a red herring. Like one Cthulhu game I was running, there was these butterflies that were flying up through a window that was painted shut, and I had this whole thing to where he was doing like the butterfly mounting stuff, and it was going to take them all off on left field. They seen it, they thought it was kind of weird, but then something else happened, they went off in left field, and that just turned into a red herring. I switched the story to go on with what they went off to do instead.
Well,
that's how I felt with the upstairs. Like my mind was set, okay, this is how the story's going to go if they turn left, or if they turn right, and that's where I hope that they go. But you didn't keep asking the questions of where the sound came from, so you turned left. And I was like, okay, right is where this part of the story is. What's over here and left? And as you guys went, I was like, oh, this is what's there, and this is what's there, and this is what's there.
And that leaves a sense of mystery even after the game. I mean, you explained to us what was behind the doors, and I'm glad you did. I also want to know what's in the chocolate egg. I mean, what's in the Easter egg?
What was in the Easter egg that we get to keep?
What was in the Easter egg?
You guys get to keep whatever's in there.
Whoever finds it gets to keep
it. It was actually a Cthulhu egg. It was going to
like alien implantation egg. Awesome.
That's even better.
So,
but yes, that's the way I just tend to do it. I tend to be more freeform because anytime the very first game I try to run, I try to make it incredibly structured. I had these points where they had to go through. I mean, it was the most railroaded game you could imagine, and no matter what I tried to do to keep them on track, nobody wanted to do what I wanted to do. So I just finally said, screw it. We're going to play freeform from now on. And that's just kind of the way I do it.
So, Scott, you've run games before.
Yes.
So, do you have any suggestions?
I thought the beginning was very solid. I thought upstairs was very solid. The barn was very solid. I think where it kind of floundered only slightly was towards the end when the majority of us were in the room already. And there were several times when you were looking for weapons, or they were trying to get into the cellar, or they were doing the things around the back of the house, where there were times when you were looking for mechanics, when you're like, is there a role for this? Is there something?
Yeah.
And there are 3 types of outcomes, or 3 types of interactions in any given story or any given game. Either it's an automatic success, and if I want to go get a spork out of the van, do we have plastic knives and forks with us? Do I need to roll for that? Really? Sure. You want a plastic spoon? Have one. It's really not going to destroy the world. Or, I'm going to go down...
Get a thermonuclear device?
I'm going to go down and I'm going to open the room in the basement and free everyone. No, you're not. Well, do I get a roll? No, you don't. You really, really can't. Okay? So you've got the 2 ends of, you can do this action and it really doesn't... It's not going to... There's no impact. Why would I make you roll to go say, do I have 35 cents in my pocket? Why, to make a phone call? Yeah, sure. There's no phone.
Too bad it's 50 cents to call anybody anymore.
Exactly. You're like, too bad there's no phones nearby. So the rolls that you don't need a roll because it's so easy to perform that it's not going to impact the story at all. Yeah. And then there's the things where I don't care. You can roll until your arm falls off. You're never going to get that door in the basement open. So don't waste a roll. The only ones that really need the mechanic are, all right, you're on the knife's edge. You're either going to fall into the jaws and die, or you're going to go, oh God, it almost killed me. Take your roll. The ones where you want to tell them, all right, you try the cellar doors, it's not open. Yeah. Or don't worry about, oh gee, is there a mechanic? How do I do the adults that are running them down? How do I do speed? Right. Don't worry about speed. Yeah. They're going to catch them.
Okay.
And break it down
that's
into...
where my question was, because I mean, did he really need to roll to open the door?
Did you want it open or not? Is it going to impact the story? Is it going to build? Is it going to build suspense? Is it going to build tension? Are we going to think, ooh, we might make it. Batman's going to save us. Good luck.
Yeah.
Then let him do it.
Yeah.
The time that him opening the door is important is when it's time sensitive.
Right.
If he really needs to get in that basement and he has 3 rounds before somebody comes and kills him, then that roll is important. It's suddenly very important.
Yeah, the way you did it at this particular time was also important because it made me very fearful of the door shutting behind me because I knew I had a 50-50 chance to open the door in the first place.
Right.
From not having the leverage, that chance was probably not going to be there if it shut. The odds of it shutting was slim. There's nobody out there. It's a Cthulhu game, so it's going to shut. But there was nobody out there.
But that becomes powerful because it's like, well, now you're on the knife's edge. Now you're on the pivot. Are you going to go in if it closes behind you? Because we all know it's going to.
Yeah.
Are we going to, do you really want to do this? If you as the storyteller said, well, there's no way anything that he can do will add to the story or forward the plot, then the door doesn't open. Or if that's not the pivot edge that we have to worry about, because he did end up coming back and going, oh shit, the door's closed, I'm going to beat on it. Mm-hmm. Well then, if you want to let him in, the door opens no problem.
Right.
There's a
or when John's character and I were trying to get away from all the adults, if that's where the story needed to go, and we were clearly outnumbered at that point and outsized, being children, then we don't need to roll it out because we know what needs to happen, what's going to happen. Just say, you guys try it, and this is what happens, and we move on.
And you give them their moments. John didn't want to go out like a bitch, and that was important to him. Uh-huh. So you say, you knock a couple of guys, but you know what? You come around for that third time, and somebody tackles you from behind, and you lose your rolling pin. It's done. He gets what he wants, but then you still get the story you need.
Right.
And you'll get that as you experience, gain experience as a GM.
Mm-hmm. So for the story, I could have just let Jesse in to the basement.
Again,
I could have drawn out the time that it took to subdue you guys.
Yeah.
You could have,
in a way.
I will disagree with Scott that there are not 3 types of situations. There's a 4th. There's the always succeeds. There's the always fails. There's the ones that you need, and then there's the role you ask for to screw with your players, and that is important in Cthulhu.
Fair enough.
Scott is very right.
Okay.
In a standard D&D game, he's absolutely right, because that's not about screwing with your players. In a Cthulhu game, sometimes you go, oh, you noticed a car back when you came out of the theater, and then when you went into the hotel where everybody's staying, you saw the same car again. Holy crap, that's weird, isn't it? You should go get all your buddies and have Scott blow the tire.
but
not that I've done that.
Yeah, but again, that's going to come with experience, knowing when to.
And in that scene, I knew there was no way we were stopping that car.
Yeah,
really.
Right.
Yeah, so you'll gain the knowledge as you run more games of when to make that call of which of those 4 types to do. Again, depending on which story or which kind of story you're telling. I agree. The 4th type Matt just brought up is not always involved in D&D.
No.
In Cthulhu, it is a solid 4th option.
And in Cthulhu, it raises the tension and the intensity of the game, and that is really important sometimes. Making Jesse roll for the door, like he said, made him think, well, maybe I can't get this door back open. That's important for him. Yeah. It kept him from shutting the door himself. So
which I would have done.
That built tension for him, so it wasn't necessarily important for him to feel like he succeeded on something. It's important for him to feel like he could have failed.
Yeah.
Right.
And even if I had failed at that point, you could have said, well, you struggle really hard. You do succeed in opening it, but you just about don't.
It's very hard.
Right.
That sometimes a failure on the dice still lets a player succeed, but puts them in a bad situation. There's I forget what they call the Marvel superheroics role-playing game.
Push or the something. Yeah.
Yeah. In that game, you roll dice and you can fail the die roll. You play superheroes in that game. Let's say you're Cyclops and Wolverine. Cyclops wants to shoot a robot out of the sky. There's a Sentinel coming in, flying on the rockets. Cyclops wants to shoot it down. He rolls the dice and he fails. Give him the shot. He blew it up. He hit it dead center mass. That robot is going down. But because you failed, you get to the game master then takes that failure and turns it into an advantage for the bad guys. The robot is coming down. on top of the Blackbird. So, now there's no escape route,
Right.
So he succeeded. He did what he wanted to do. He shot him down. Now they're screwed.
That's the same thing that happened in Lord of the Rings.
It's a narrative
Gandalf
focus.
completely destroys that Balrog and gets killed in the or gets taken away. In
No,
the
he gets
process.
killed.
Right.
So technically he dies.
Right.
Comes back.
And one of the things, there's a new game that I started looking into that is obviously not a new game. It's the Fate system.
Yeah.
And I really like, they have a great mechanic, if you will, that at any point in time you can relent. And you can say, all right, Johnny's coming across to attack me. He's going to hit me in the head with a chair. I'm going to relent. I'm going to narrate the result of that activity.
I get to hit you in the head with a chair.
Right.
But after that, it's all up in the air.
It's all up in what I describe.
Yeah.
It takes us to the end scene with Johnny and Phil being there and going, okay, the adults are going to attack you. And they went, all right, I relent. And Johnny said, but I don't want to go out like a bitch.
I want to take somebody down.
And that's when you can go, okay, well, you take down the first one, you take down the second one, and then you're done.
Yeah.
And it's the player gets what they want with the idea of it doesn't matter how many dice you roll, you're going down. So the idea becomes you're going to lose. Here's your spectacular failure. But you wanted to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, but we're still going down this road for the story.
And I love that mechanic too.
Yeah.
I totally agree. That's awesome.
So, honestly, I'm not super familiar with Phil or Scott S.'s running history of running games. So, if you guys have anything to add, feel free.
Run a lot of games in general. The one thing I kind of cued in on was your use of red herrings. For instance, the things that you threw out in your narrative that people started focusing in on. For instance, I mean, you were fascinated by the lack of lights, or okay, the light switch. That's that.
No electricity.
Okay,
Who does
what
that?
Going on here? I will throw out red herrings. I will also not be afraid to tell a player no, as long as I do so in a way that fits the narrative and the genre. Because if you throw the atmosphere in, then it just fits in. In a more continuing story, I will throw out things that sometimes there's red herrings, which you're just not going to understand this no matter what. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's red herrings with, in this session, if my players focus in on this thing and are clever about it, they'll figure something out. And sometimes I'll throw in a red herring that 2 or 3 game sessions later, this may come back to haunt them, and maybe, just maybe, that man will say, I remember that. It's a clue. But you can use these things that people don't immediately understand or can't come to grips with to feed something in later on.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of running experience, but...
Okay, no, that's fine. So, any other thoughts from anybody? You know what? I haven't given you my thoughts.
You haven't?
Well, I haven't given you. I think it's important that when you run off the cuff, you take notes as you do it.
Right.
I don't know if you. I wasn't really paying a super bit of attention.
The thing is, I really get what you're saying, because there were a couple times where I was like, okay, this happens and this happens. And then I was like, oh, I want to reread what I had. And I noticed that I didn't take the notes about it. And I was like, crud, where was I going to go?
Yeah, I noticed that with the basement. You were like, well, I don't remember how we got down there.
Yeah, and that's very important in an extended campaign also, especially if you're going off the cuff.
Yeah.
I would also say that there are times when I for Cthulhu, I almost always run pre-printed stuff in some way, shape, or form. I ran the game for Shirley and Johnny a year ago. That was completely out of the book. I ran a game for Shirley, Johnny, Jesse, and George, who's on our normal podcast. I murdered and mutilated that adventure and used what I wanted and then wrote the end. But I always use something written, because I find with investigating things like this, it's easier to have an end result and to work from that. Right. So with the Masks of Gnarltep, I've gone off the cuff a lot by raiding rooms, by having people follow you in cars, but a lot of other stuff that I'll leave out there so I don't ruin anything. But the module specifically says, if they do this, you need to increase the danger. Doesn't say how, doesn't say with what, doesn't say anything other than, if they do this, you need to respond. Right. So I have to figure out how to do that. So running off the cuff, even with a written adventure, is still important. because your players are always going to do something you don't expect.
Yeah, well, and that comes down to experience again.
Yeah.
Right.
So the more you do it, the better.
And I would add this, okay? You have one of two types of one of each side of the coin when it comes to improvisation and off the cuff. If you're the type of individual that can put on a suit and walk into the back room of any restaurant or hotel or concert venue and pull it off like you belong there, then great. You don't really need to take all those notes because you'll remember, oh yeah, the witch with the wart on the right side of her nose, and you'll remember it because you're used to off the cuff, you're used to improv, you're used to doing that sort of bluffing. It's part of your nature. If you can't, on any given night, play the game Ninja, where you go and spend a half hour in a back room where it says employees only, and walk in, socialize with whoever's there, and walk out without being touched, then you write everything down. I mean, if you don't have that level of improv skill, where you're going, oh yeah, this tied over there, and this went, and there was one thing I was holding with my toe, and I brought them all together at an end, boom, there's the pretty bow, and people go, oh wow, I'm impressed with that. If you don't have that level of, gosh, I improv this every other night. If you can't, then take the notes on the little details that you hand out, because those little details are what are going to be the hooks in your players' minds that are going to go, wait, was it the lady with the wart on her nose? Yeah, which lady was that again? Yeah. Remind me? Write that stuff down.
And it's hard to know, I mean, everything that's, what exactly is going to be that every time. But again, it'll come with experience.
Yeah, and the
so
players
just
will
keep playing.
Ask you to remember some really bizarre things at times.
My last suggestion for new keepers is that you take a look at a published adventure to get a feel for structure.
Yeah.
What?
I was going to say that's kind of the same.
Yeah, I would almost suggest...
I mean, you don't have to use it. Just get an idea of structure. That was one of the things I pushed Shirley to do that she did.
Yeah, I would almost suggest at least playing a game before you try to run a game, because this is a very unique system.
It is. I think that'll end us tonight, unless you guys have anything else.
No.
And you can catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdsdomain. You can find us on Twitter at nerdsdomain, and you can buy our shirts over at tinyurl.com/indie shirts. And we will talk to you guys real soon.